I think that's when the outcome really increase. And I think as people watch your work, they've seen that happen. And I think oftentimes people wonder, how did that change happen so quickly? And I think that I would say this is that perfect example of you really honing this language and to the point where it's change is inevitable because you're asking these questions in such a purposeful way.
Right. And it's funny, you bring up two thoughts for me. The first one is one of the things I used to hear in the beginning of my career, and I really took to heart, was one of my faculty members would say, and I bet a lot of people watching this video have heard it as well, like, you should never work harder than your client. And I'm at a point now that's even, I would almost say that that's kind of a pet peeve for me, because I should be completely working unbelievably hard at my task because I expect them to work very hard at their task. So the idea that I should not outwork my client is kind of, it's almost like comparing apples and oranges. Like, I'm going to work as hard as necessary in my task, but I'm not going to do anything related to their task, and I'm going to expect them to work equally hard. So to state it plainly, I'm going to work however hard I need to work to ask purposeful, good questions that are likely to produce a meaningful response that leads towards change. And I fully expect them to think as hard as necessary to answer the question. And as long as we're doing that work, you used a word that I think is really appropriate, actually, and that word is inevitable. As long as those two things are true, then change is inevitable. It might not last as long as the client wants, and it might not be as grand as the client wants, but change is inevitable when those things are happening, because it might be as long as the client wants, and it might be as grand as the client wants. And it's our job to produce that change.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that you just went to the Brief Therapy conference and kind of, re-experienced kind of that MRI. And I think that foundation of change is always happening comes back into play here. And I think that change, just by having this conversation, change will happen. But by having a purposeful solution-building conversation, then we hopefully are gearing change in a certain direction, which I think is our job and our responsibility.
That's right. And go ahead. And then I want to add something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if we don't practice, or if we don't hone that skill, change will happen no matter what. It might not be the change we want. It might be that they get worse.
Right.
And so I think that it's really incumbent upon each of us as clinicians to hone the craft, to guide change in what we think is a really positive, hopeful direction.
Yeah, and the word that you keep using is we should be purposeful and intentional in our questions, which is exactly why the problem isn't relevant to the therapy. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying the problem isn't real. I'm not even saying the problem is not impactful. It's just not relevant to the therapy, because regardless of what brought the client into my office, I'm interested in the direction. In essence, I'm interested in the desired outcome they have in their lives. And then I'm going to be purposeful. I'm going to be intentional about the questions I ask connected to that desired outcome. And it doesn't matter whether or not you have anxiety, or you discovered your spouse is having an affair, or whether you are depressed or suicidal. All of those are clients I saw today in my very office. But in all of those scenarios, I was interested in the desired outcome they're seeking. And I dutifully asked questions that would more likely produce change than not. And you have to work at this. My very first book is called The Art of Solution-Focused Therapy, and I interviewed 15. So Linda Metcalf and myself were the two authors, the two editors, and we interviewed 15 masters of this approach. And we noticed that all 15 of them had three things in common. Number one, they were mentored by someone. Usually that someone was Stephen and Sue because of the nature of the people we got to, but all 15 of them were mentored by someone. Number two, they all spent a significant amount of time scrutinizing video. Number three, they all did a lot of practice work. And when I say practice, I don't mean just seeing a lot of clients. I mean like exercises, practicing the language level questioning at events like intensive trainings, or even with their colleagues. But those three things I think are very, very important to learning any language. You have to practice it, you have to expose yourself to it, you have to immerse yourself in it. And it was interesting to me to look back and realize that these are 15 masters of psychotherapy, and they all were mentored, they all scrutinized video, and they all practiced.